high school student Hotoro Ichinose comes across mysterious creatures known as Kemis and discovers that he has the innate ability to befriend them. Through the use of the mysterious study of alchemy and trading cards, he is able to harness the Kemi's power and transform into Kamen Rider Gotchard. But he's not who we're talking about, as we see a very shiny man looking on, making his remarks on the birth of a new Kamen Rider. But this is no ordinary man, for this is the gorgeous shining light of brilliance that graces the world, Ho-Oh Kaguya Quartz, aka Kamen Rider Legend.
覚悟しろハンドレッド。かぐや様が貴様にゴージャスな終止符を打ってやる。今も心刺さったゴールドのエナジー。変身。輝きのルーツ。オーロラの糧現れたなら勝利の幕開け。 ゴージャスにバトル大盤振る舞い最強クリスタルクリア我こそがリビングレジェ
I am a slave to capitalism and hyper-consumerism. But hey, at least you can't say I don't have any hobbies. With the 2023 series Kamen Rider Gotchard came the advent of a new anniversary rider who has almost nothing to do with the main show itself, which is also not an anniversary season. Yeah. Introduced in the two-part spin-off special Kamen Rider Gotchard vs Kamen Rider Legend, our main man Kaguya is first shown off literally bathed in jewels. Like, if that doesn't tell you all you need to know about him, I don't know what will. He's overly confident, self-righteous to the point of narcissism, and has a huge savior complex. And most importantly, he is the biggest Kamen Rider Decade fanboy, taking imitation is the most sincere form of flattery to the most literal degree. Not just in looks, however, but also in power set, as Kaguya unveils a table of cards, similar to that of Hotoro's Kemi cards. However, they each contain the image of a particular Legend Rider, allowing Legend himself to transform into them. Now, I don't mean to sound like a broken record. If you've seen my Gojuju video, you know my opinion on this kind of fan service, the whole bringing back the old suits thing. The thing is, I feel like there is a fine balance that needs to be taken into account with fan service like this. And I didn't like it in Dom Brothers because they just did what Gokaiger did, and it was just so unnecessary. But Legend here is also just doing what Decade did, and also D-end to that extent by summoning riders with his gun. So I wouldn't necessarily blame you for calling it unnecessary fan service or nostalgia bait, since it's just a bunch of recognizable suits to get the audience to point at the screen and do the soy face and, above all, sell merchandise like it's been done countless times before. But here, to me, it feels kind of different, seeing as they attempt to explain it all in-universe. We learn that Kaguya's form of flattery, plagiarism, has some meaning behind it, as we see Kamen Rider Decade actually saved Kaguya when he was young, inspiring the young boy to become the ultimate rider using the power of legends, just like his hero. So while the excessive fan service, in all honesty, feels like an obligation from Toei and Bandai executives, I can at the very least appreciate the writer's attempts to tie it in with his character. But moving on from that, I think what makes Legend really interesting is his place in Gotchard as a whole, or lack thereof. The fact of the matter is that despite his incessant main character syndrome, Kaguya is not the primary rider of the show. That's Hotoro. But it's the interactions with their counteracting personalities that I feel helps elevate each of their characters. At the point in the show where they first meet, Hotaro is at the very beginning of his journey, still naive and innocent, yet always optimistic and able to see the best in everyone. Initially, Kaguya sees this merely as a weakness. Hotaro is simply not fit to be a Kamen Rider because he isn't your typical scarred soldier with a dark and tortured past. It sounds like Toku Twitter, but I'm getting sidetracked. If it's trauma you want Kaguya, then give it 30 something episodes and I'll show you trauma. My god. Kaguya is your de facto Kamen Rider, to the point where he can transform into any of them, making him insanely overpowered. He carries all the hallmarks of your typical rider. He fights an evil organization like the Showa riders of old. He has a grandiose and bombastic personality like the more new age Heisei and Reiwa riders, and also has a dark and mysterious backstory, all the while spouting vaguely heroic sounding nonsense. Everything about him is flashy and overindulgent, from his clothes to his transformation to the suit itself. This guy even refers to himself in the third person, like he is a little weird. Maybe a bit more than a little. And despite borrowing powers from previous riders, Kaguya makes it damn well clear it's him under the suit, to the point where the golden elements from his suit bleed onto the other riders' suits, which is just a really cool detail that helps set him apart from Decade at least. At the end of the day, he's basically a lone wolf, having no other friends or family than just his butler. Unlike Hotaro, who's just making friends every single week in the main show. But Hotaro soon comes to realize that Kaguya uses his shiny, extravagant exterior to draw his enemy's attention away from innocent people who may be in the same situation that he was as a child, allowing him to become a literal beacon of hope. So Kaguya chooses to isolate himself completely so that others won't be harmed by the enemies he draws in. That is until he meets Hotaro, who, despite also being a Kamen Rider, isn't a lonely, miserable, stuck-up douche. Their dynamic plays heavily into the themes of Gotchard as a whole. Kaguya is stuck in his own sense of tradition and what he thinks it means to be a Kamen Rider, trying desperately to follow in the footsteps of the riders of old in order to validate his own identity as a hero. Hotaro, however, likes to do things his own way. Throughout the show, he struggles to follow the extremely strict rules and regulations of the Alchemy Academy he attends. For example, Hotaro doesn't simply opt to use the chemis as tools for power, instead opting to befriend each and every one of them, Pokemon style, not letting strict guidelines or traditions define him and how he operates as a Kamen Rider, which, without getting into too many spoilers, does actually play heavily into his character later on in the show. The two learn from each other's opposing ideals and end up gaining a respect for the other's approach at being a hero who protects the innocent. But before the two can properly shake on it, Hotaro is prematurely sent back to his home universe. Did I mention that Kaguya lives in an alternate dimension yet? No? Well, the more you know. Anyways, fast forward through most of Gotchard as things start to get shaken up. As 100, the organization bent on conquering the multiverse, invades the world of Gotchard in search for a super weapon. As Hotaro and his friends try to fight back, they end up backed into a corner, and all hope seems lost until our boy Kaguya literally descends from the heavens. Like, you actually can't make this up. I'm at a loss for words. Huh? I can't help but think of the poor kids who never watched the special before this, watching this episode and being so confused on who the hell this is. A real Roy/Graggle Simpson kind of situation going on here. After an admittedly very awesome fight scene, full of nostalgia bait, Kaguya calls upon the super weapon and transforms into legendary legend. I'm still not making any money off of YouTube yet. Can I still call this a tax write-off or no? This form allows Kaguya to ward off 100 for the time being. This final form and his base form I really love. Honestly, a little bit more than Decade's forms, to be honest. Especially Decade Complete. And Complete 21, but that was out of the question. I feel like Gold Kamen Riders are more often than not, a hit. The added details and bedazzlements on top of what is already Decade makes it a really appealing suit for me. And then the final form is even better in my opinion. I especially love the way all the cards form into this regal lion's mane that is so ridiculously impractical, yet so unbelievably cool. To be honest, the special and these episodes aren't anything groundbreaking. The villains are pretty bland. The pacing is breakneck. At the end of the day, they're ultimately here to sell merchandise, which, worked. These episodes do kind of retread some of the same ground that was covered in the spin-off, like character-wise. Yet, despite that, I still think it's a really fun little mini arc of the show. Kaguya gets to see how much Hotaro has grown, not just in his strength, but also in his kindness, and in the bonds he's formed with the rest of Gotchard's cast up until this point. Allowing Kaguya to realize that it's those bonds that can help him achieve his dream of protecting the innocent. Not just shining as a lonely soldier, but shining even brighter with a comrade by his side. Isn't friendship just awesome, guys? I wish I had friends. Aww. Nah, I'm just kidding. I've got lots of friends. All in all, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I am a sucker for this kind of fan service. And yes, I do like to point at the screen and pog when I see a thing that I recognize from something else. It's coded deep into my monkey neurons. I can't help it. So you know what? Enough reviews, enough analysis. Get that out of here. I'm just gonna be doing reaction videos from now on, baby. Oh yeah! Oh my goodness! He transformed into a different Power Ranger! Ah!